All the Arab of the Future is a story of people, various people thinking they have destiny. My father was from a poor background. He became doctor at La Sorbonne. He was convinced he would become president one day because it was too much incredible to succeed this. So he was waiting for his destiny to come. And it was funny for me to show that one of the things that decided my life was only because my grandmother looked at one of my child drawings and thought it was the French President Pompidou. And she was thinking at that time that I was a genius because I drew Pompidou at 2 years old. And then I saw in her eyes that I was a genius, so I continued drawing to impress her, and that decided my whole life. It's only a vision of admiration that, so it's not a destiny, it could have been something else. For example, if I don't know, if I have cooked something and my grandmother liked my cooking, maybe I would have continued it. So I like to show that when people think they have a destiny, sometimes it's just stopping things that decide life. Simple, stupid things that decide everything. My life is really linked to the comic world. So now I'm doing comics for many years, and I'm very happy to put all my own history in those books. It's my favorite form of expression. We were living in a small village in Syria, and my grandmother was sending me the album of Tintin by mail, and first of all, I didn't know how to read, so I was just watching the images. Then I started to learn how to read because it's my mother who learned me. And but at that time, I was thinking that Tintin comics were from all eternity, like the sea or the sky or mountains. And then one day, I discovered that there was a guy who was able to who wrote the story, who drew the drawings, and who created all the characters and everything. And then it was like a revelation, like a mystical revelation, and I realized that it was really what I wanted to do all my life. It was clear in my mind. There is only one subject that's acceptable when you are from Middle East, is to speak about Middle East, you know. I didn't want it to be the guy with an Arabic name who immediately make a book on his Arabic origin or Arabic subject, something like that. I wanted to be a guy with an Arabic name who makes science fiction, for example, or fantasy books, for example. Something that was very strange to me, or I realized when I was in France, is that all the writers of horror books or science fiction books and fantasy books, their names were like Mike T.S. Pitson or J.K. Rowling or George R. Martin or Dean R. Koontz. There was never like a guy who wrote horror books called Mohammed bin something, you know, because I was proud of my name, and because it was a funny name, because in French, Sattouf means her pussy. It's a funny name. So it's difficult to write a horror book when your name is her pussy. But I tried to make it. No, I succeeded it was a little bit hard, but now so I can write anything I want. When I turned 37 or 38, it was the beginning of the civil war in Syria, and I had this project of telling the history of my young years when I was in the Middle East with my father and my mother. And I had this project for a very long time, but I was turning around it also because of the Arabic subject. I was thinking, no, don't speak about this. And the civil war began in Syria, and at that time I had to help a part of my family who was still living in Homs, and to come and have a refuge in France. And I had a lot of difficulties to obtain them authorization in France. It was very easy to leave Syria for them, but very complicated to enter in France. So I wanted to tell by comics all the difficulties I've had with the French administration, everything that they were asking me, etc., etc. But to make this history interesting, I had to tell the story from the very beginning. So that decided me to start the Arab the Future at that time. When I started the book, I had a clear vision of what I wanted visually. So I imposed myself some constraints. It was mainly on colors, because I only use one color by country, with the color of the flag of the country, to put a strong ambience. And I wanted the book to be very easily readable by people who don't read comics. That means very expressive drawings, easy to understand from a panel to another, very fluent reading style of comics. And so I worked a lot on this. I have very precise memory of my childhood, but a lot of them are like animal memory. It means like it's a smell memory, it's a taste memory, it's a sounds memory, or colors. It's not precise description of action, and I wanted to make it emotionally understandable by anybody. And the story is mainly about the main character, who is my father, who is an object of fascination for his child, who is me when I was young. My father was from a very poor background in Syria, and he succeeded to become a doctor in La Sorbonne. And he was somebody who was for modernity and everything. But he also had very violent inner feelings. So he wanted to make a coup. He wanted to execute people. He was very racist. So he had those two paradoxal parts in it. And I tell the story of me fascinated by him and drinking all his speech like it was true, absolute truth. And we followed him. The books tell the stories for different travel in Libya, then after that in Syria. It's a child point of view. This was very important for me because I don't like generalization, for example. My book is not a book about Syria, for example. I started to write the first version of The Arab the Future without the commentary voice in the book. And I realized that if I didn't explain some things as an adult, I will lose my reader because they will not understand what it was about. I wanted in the book not to judge the characters and to show them with their inner paradox, especially for the character of the father, because I wanted the reader to be like compromised with the main character, you know. Like I want the reader to like him also a little bit, and to feel uncomfortable when he made huge mistake and said, you say, oh my God, what is that? I don't like, you know, comfortable stories. I like to put the reader in, to push him, or I don't know, to make things like that. And it's true that, for example, when I've met readers during signing, and guy came and said to me, your father, what a horrible man he is. Oh my God, And I say, yeah, you're right, and this thing. And then 3 persons after him, a guy or a woman come and said to me, oh, he's so touching. And I think those 2 interpretations of the same character is, when people said to me this, it's like a victory, because it's exactly that I wanted. So each person sees in the character what a part of maybe himself. I think the drawings is the most powerful form of art, a human form of art, because it's the oldest one and the first one in humanity. For example, everything is drawing for comic form has been forgotten for thousands of years by humanity, but it was the first way of communication for the prehistoric man. For example, they were telling stories with drawing on the caves, with lions eating hunters, and they were telling how their hunting was, and they were using drawing to explain mysticism and everything. And drawing is at the center of humanity and everything in humanity. You can see easily how drawing is very important to humans, so they can be very moved by drawings. And this is, comic is very powerful. For example, if you make a comic without any text, just a muted comic, all humans on earth would be able to read them. They will not seek how to, they will watch it and they will follow it, even their languages, even if they are in Amazonia, or there is something with this type of narration, because it's very close to the dreaming process. It's very deep rooted in human. We have to follow signs. Drawing the world make it much more understandable, even if it's chaotic and extremely violent, and the wild is very aggressive to human, but they try to explain the world by simplifying him to understand him, just to putting it in comprehension.